Welcome to Chapter 4, Developmental and Learning Theories. So there have been many different theorists about the development of children, and they've come up with lots of different answers to questions that as teachers we're probably asking. And so that's why the theories matter to us, because they give us an opportunity to explore the hows and whys of children's workings and how their brain works and how they develop. And so the theories seek to answer these common questions that as teachers we're probably asking. How do children develop? What do children learn, and in what order do they learn it? What do people need to be ready to learn? What affects learning? Do all people develop in the same ways? And what are the similarities and differences in growth and development? There are various perspectives on development, and theories provide broad and consistent views of the complexity of human development. Hypotheses allow us to make educated guesses about children's behavior and development. So because these theorists have done the research, then it gives us possible answers to some questions we might have about a specific child's development or their behavior, or we can use this in lesson planning and activity planning. We can think about what we know about how children develop to make plans. So development can be broken down into three major categories. There's physical motor development, like crawling, walking, running, and the fine motor skills like grasping objects. There's intellectual development, and that includes language acquisition, problem solving, memory development, understanding concepts like numbers, shapes, and colors. And there is affective development, which includes empathy, self-awareness, the ability to regulate emotions, and social skills. And yes, these three can overlap. For example, children playing with blocks. When they're doing that, they're developing their fine motor skills. They are problem solving because they're figuring out which blocks can go together to make a strong foundation or make whatever they're wanting to make. And then they explore cause and effect. For example, if I put one more block on top, this is going to fall. And that's the effect. And if they're playing with another child, they have social interaction and emotional expression, and those are affective development. So what are the major issues in development? Well, is children's development due more to maturation or experience? Different theorists have different ideas. Is growth smooth and continuous, or is it more stage-like? And what can theory and research do for early childhood educators? So that's really why we're learning about it. What does this do for us? Well, as I've noted, there have been plenty of theorists, and they have similar yet different ideas and concepts. And what you have in Figure 4.2 of your book is 12 principles that have been developed from these decades of research and theory and practice, compiled to kind of make a more concise list that we can go off of. And that list is actually the basis for developmentally appropriate practices. So we're going to dive right into some of the various theories. So psychoanalytic theory suggests that the stages you see here shape people's personalities. And there's an emphasis on the importance of the parent-child relationship here. If you know anything about Freud, whose theory this is, you're probably not surprised by the importance of the parent-child relationship. And he has certainly had some controversial theories, but he also has theories that are the basis for some of the other theorists. And so he certainly should not be discounted. And so Erik Erikson expanded and refined Freud's theory of development. He also emphasized the importance of stages in personality development, and each of his 8 stages focuses on a unique psychosocial crisis that might happen at that stage in life. So stages span from infancy to old age, and they involve the resolution of conflicts related to different aspects of life, like you see, trust versus mistrust, autonomy versus shame and doubt. So his theory emphasizes the importance of social interactions and emphasizes the development of self-identity. So it's like you have to conquer this one conflict before moving on to the next. And just for fun, I'll let you know that Erikson lived from 1902 to 1994. So this is, I mean, in modern history for sure. And like it says here, develops these 8 stages of development. And when I see his 8, it makes me think of a Shakespearean poem that actually comes from one of his plays, but it's called The 7 Ages of Man. And it is about 7 ages that 7 stages. It is called 7 Ages of Man, but it's about 7 stages that Shakespeare saw humans as going through. So if you look that up, do it on YouTube, not Google, because you'll find some fun actors portraying it instead of just reading it. So 7 Ages of Man by Shakespeare. All right, and the behaviorists. Behaviorists in child development focus on observable behaviors and the environmental factors that shape those behaviors. They believe that behavior is learned through conditioning and reinforcement. So many behaviorists, like Skinner and this whole list up here, emphasize the role of rewards and punishments in shaping behavior and emphasize the importance of the environment in influencing child development. So rewards and punishments, the behaviorists. You might have heard references at some point in your life to Pavlov and his dogs. And that would be used in reference to someone being trained to do what someone else wants them to do. So with his dogs, by ringing a bell every time he fed his dogs, they eventually learned to salivate at just the sound of the bell, even when no food was present. So it's believed that this can play a role in child development as well, because it involves associating a neutral stimulus, like the bell was neutral, that wasn't a reward itself, with a naturally occurring response to create a conditioned response. So one example of this is like the dentist. If all of your first experiences at the dentist office were painful, it's going to take a lot of years for you to be conditioned against thinking that going to the dentist is a bad experience. So like I said, we can use this in child development. Not that we are trying to get our toddlers to salivate more than they already do while they're teething. That's not our intended goal, but it could be used like by playing a specific song at the end of playtime to signal that that's the end of time. And eventually, if they're taught to clean up at the end of playtime, then when that song comes on, children will automatically know time to clean up. So operant conditioning is also Skinner, and it focuses on the consequences of behavior, such as rewards and punishments, to shape and reinforce behaviors. By providing positive reinforcement for desired behaviors and using appropriate consequences for undesirable behaviors, parents and educators can help children learn and develop new skills. So the cognitive theories of Piaget, probably one of our most famous theorists, and his are more cognitive focused than the previous ones we've discussed. And his theory suggests that children go through distinct stages of cognitive development as they actively construct knowledge about the world. And those stages are sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete, and formal. So these are the stages according to Piaget, and he believed that children's thinking and understanding of the world are influenced by their interactions with the environment and with their ability, to organize and adapt their mental schemas. Each stage builds upon previous knowledge as they progress through the stages. So in the sensory motor stage, children learn about the world through their senses and motor actions. Think about children exploring by putting everything in their mouth at this age, right? That's one of their senses. That's how they're learning about it. This is the stage where they develop object permanence. I remember being so interested in school when I first learned about Piaget and object permanence. And I mean, it seems pretty logical, but if you had never thought about it before, it was a new concept. Just the idea that, before gaining object permanence, somewhere in this period, babies don't know that if you can't see something, it still exists, which, is why they might cry when mom steps out of sight. If they can't see her anymore, they don't know what's going on. This is when they begin to coordinate their sensory experiences with their motor actions. And this leads to the development of intentional behaviors and basic problem solving skills. Very basic problem solving skills. We're not talking about math or anything, but we're talking about when they are sitting in their high chair and drop something, they got to figure out how they're going to get it. Well, they're going to communicate that verbally to someone that they want it, right? So basic problem solving skills. So the pre-operational stage. And during the stage, children develop symbolic thinking and language skills. However, they still struggle with the logical reasoning and conservation, which is the understanding that the quantity of an object remains the same, even if its appearance changes. They also tend to exhibit egocentrism when they have difficulty understanding other people's perspectives. And I think we can all say that we've known plenty of 2- and 3-year-olds who fit that mold. All right, and the concrete operational stage, children become more capable of logical thinking and understanding concrete objects and events. They can now perform mental operations such as conservation and reversibility, and understand concepts like classification and seriation. However, their thinking is still limited to concrete, tangible experiences rather than thinking abstractly or about hypothetical situations. And then I don't have a slide for his last stage because that is not early childhood anymore. But I do think there's a lot to be said about the stages, even as you get into the older ones. For example, a 2nd grader isn't ready to learn algebra yet, right? And it isn't just because they haven't progressed through the actual steps of learning all the math you need before algebra. It's because their brains aren't ready to be learning algebra yet. So I just think when they put out state standards and things like that, that's something that has to be kept in mind. It's not just about rushing through things. It's about brains being ready for it. Sociocultural theory highlights the importance of language, social interaction, and collaborative learning in shaping a child's cognitive development. The ecological theory recognizes the interconnectedness of various systems like family, school, community, and culture, and how they collectively influence a child's growth and well-being. A lot of times students are very interested in this one, and it pops up in a couple of your key assessments throughout your classes. So make sure you note these page numbers in your book from this chapter and come back to it if you need to. But Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences, this theory suggests that there are different types of intelligence beyond just the traditional IQ. It recognizes that children have unique strengths and abilities in different areas, and that education should cater to these various diverse intelligences that you see here to support overall development. So by considering these multiple intelligences, educators can create a more inclusive and personalized approach to child development. So we've got to teach to everyone, not just the middle, and not just those who might have some learning difficulties. We've got to also try to reach all these different intelligences. So it's quite a job that we have. The maturation theory suggests that genetic and biological factors play a significant role in shaping a child's growth and development. So according to this theory, children go through a predetermined sequence of milestones and stages as they mature. And the milestones include physical, cognitive, and emotional changes that occur naturally as a child grows up. This theory highlights the importance of allowing children to develop at their own pace and providing them with appropriate support and opportunities to reach their full potential. Okay, Maslow's humanistic theory. This is the only book where I've ever heard it called that. I'm much more familiar with it being called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You might have heard of that one as well. There is an example of it in your book, and it looks like a pyramid. And of course, pyramids are strongest on the bottom, right? They've got a strong foundation. So that's exactly what this theory is suggesting, is that in order to achieve the top of the pyramid, we've got to have a strong foundation. So it suggests that we've got this hierarchy of needs that have to be met to reach our full potential and achieve the ultimate goal of being self-actualized humans. So according to Maslow, the most basic of needs that must be met before anything else can are our physiological needs, like food and shelter. And that makes sense, right? How can you worry about finding love until you have food and shelter, right? And then right above that is safety, also pretty basic. How can we worry about our education or getting a good job until we know that we've got food, shelter, and are safe? Then comes belongingness and love needs, and then self-actualization needs. So the emphasis is on addressing these needs in order to eventually promote personal growth, being motivated to do well, and just the well-being, and well-being in individuals, including children. So this means for teachers, what this means for us as teachers is that by understanding and meeting these very basic needs, we can eventually help meet the other needs. And we can support the holistic development of children and create an environment that fosters them eventually getting to this self-actualization point. But if they're not meeting those basic needs of food, shelter, safety first, and you can even think about that in a classroom. If children are being bullied at school, they don't feel safe enough to concentrate. If children are hungry when they come to school, they can't concentrate. Things that are affecting them from home, maybe they can't concentrate on learning and developing beyond that if those basic needs aren't being met. Attachment suggests that the quality of early relationships and attachments between infants and their caregivers has a significant impact on a child's social and emotional development. This emphasizes the importance of a secure and nurturing attachment bond for a child's overall well-being. So for those of you who are interested, you can find many studies involving attachment and impacts to development, especially when attachments are not formed from infancy. And it's why you all know that job one in a delivery room, right, is to get that baby to the mama so they can start that bonding right away and forming those attachments. And why when there are, when baby or mama went through trauma in delivery or something, they do whatever they can, there have to be steps taken to make sure that bond is still being formed. Even for babies that have to be in the NICU or something, they take precautions to try to help that bonding occur. That is very important to development. And of course, the basis of everything we're doing, learning through play. Children learn to explore, problem solve, and develop their creativity. It helps them develop fine motor and gross motor skills, as well as social skills like sharing and taking turns. Play also allows children to express and regulate their emotions, to build self-confidence, and develop their imaginations. It is an essential part of child development. It is what you will see stressed over and over again in our classes, learning through play. That, of course, does not mean turn the children loose all day and let them play. It means guided play. It means providing the right toys and the right settings to develop the skills that we're hoping to help them develop. And that's what we're here to learn about how to do. So thanks for joining me.